morning, Frank. Thanks for coming over. It's a pleasure to do this, and as you said, you'll ask some questions, but just a brief overview is we moved here 4 years ago, and kind of the reason why we're taking this picture from this direction right now is right behind me. You could actually see right through all that to the house. When we moved here, it was a jungle. You couldn't see anything. So it's been about 3 years of culling and cutting and chopping and hauling to the dump. So this has been a work in progress for 4 years, and as we go out to the garden, none of that was here 4 years ago. Well, like I said, when we first moved here, there was absolutely nothing here, so I figured, well, it certainly is the perfect spot to put in a garden. Then it became a question of where to put it in the garden, how big to make the garden. And just started kind of laying it out with strings and thought, well, you know, this probably is a good spot. It gets the morning sun, there's no trees for shade, and it gets the afternoon. I didn't want it right out in the out there because that's our drain field. So I felt this was probably the best spot for it. And basically I went down and rented a skid steer and just started moving dirt, and you know, every single post that I put in, you'll see rocks interspersed around in here. I saved those just because every post I dug, I hit big rocks. So this is very rocky soil being here near the creek in the mouth of the canyon. Yeah, it's, you know, you really can't grow anything in it. That was the intent, was just put the fence up and, you know, start planting, but you couldn't. So that's where the all the beds were made from rough sawn dug fir that I got at Mark's Lumber. And
so how many beds are in your garden, Geoff?
Well, there's 16, but I only made signs that denote 15 because I kind of lost interest in making all these little numbers. And I think this is where I'm going to stop. So, and then this gate, you mentioned it, the wagon wheels were at our house when we lived in Sheridan, Wyoming. Brought them with me, and the guy who was our real estate agent, Evan McCaw, also does metal work. So he made the frame for me, and then basically I built around it. And then realizing that when we were in Sweden, I saw all these hops growing. I thought, well, that would be perfect. I could put the hops right here. You know, again, I like IPAs, really hoppy beer. So I thought, well, I'll plant some hops, and I actually, you know, looked to see what zone would work here, and the Chinook and the Cascade were the two that seemed to be, would have the best chances. Said, hey, there's this really neat system, you know, for watering. It's a drip system, and so they initially, in the first 4 beds, put this in, and if you actually pan over to that brown hose on the next bed over, the hose itself is an emitter, and then these all have emitters in them. So you get a pretty uniform, consistent watering, and I turn it on in about the middle of May, the end of May, and water every day for about 20 minutes.
Geoff, you have quite a few onions. What's the story behind that?
It is a story, believe me. And when I was in Costco, I was talking to one of the checker guys, and he said, oh yeah, I bought my onions through Dixon Dale. You go to their website. So I did, and I thought, wow. So they had all these different onions, red onions, yellow onions, you know, sweet onions. And so I just started ordering, not realizing that when they say you're going to get a clump of them, or whatever they called it, when I got my order, it was like, oh my God, I had so many onions. It was just like, what am I going to do with all these? I gave some away. And I thought, well, I guess I'll plant them and see what happens. But then I realized, oh my God, you know, I have so many onions, and they have to be so deep, and they have to be 4 inches apart. This is going to take forever. So
look at that.
I came up with this little gizmo. I had some leftover wood, and I had some dowels. So basically, you know, at the beginning of the season, you just put this down, stand on it, and gives you the distance you need, and it got well used, believe me. That last year, I went up to that place by Murdoch's where they have those big straw bales, and for like $2 a bale, I got, I think it was 15 or 16 straw bales that I just laid all the way down around here in a big U. And in April, I started adding nitrogen fertilizer to start breaking it down. And about May is when I started planting stuff in it. And again, it was similar to what's here right now, except I did have cucumbers in there, and it did okay. I mean, it wasn't great.
So this was a year ago with the bale.
With the bales.
Yeah.
And then when you're finished growing, you have 15 bales. And you go, well, what am I going to do with 15 bales? So I thought, well, I'm not going to do this again next year. But the bales turned out really well because this was kind of prone to a lot of weeds. So I just broke the bales down, spread it all out, and then I used some of the bales, as you can see, leftover mulch when I planted the garlic in October. And that really protected it and kept the moisture in, and the garlic did very, very well. So this year I thought, well, I want to grow in here. So basically all I did was I just took the straw, separated it out about that far, a circle, added topsoil into those holes, and then planted these seeds. And it's worked really, really well. This was the original, one of the original 4 beds, and I planted asparagus in this last spring. We had beautiful asparagus, just gorgeous. It was about the size of your thumb, which is what you want it to be. And that weekend we were going to have some people over, so I figured I'd come pick it. And that night we had our frost, and all the asparagus fell down and basically was worthless. So, maybe next year, I'm thinking, because I'm replacing some windows in the house, I'm thinking of using those old windows and make some cold frames around these. Oh, yeah. So next year, they're only going to be probably about that high, and my cold frames, I think I'm going to make about this high. So maybe that'll protect at least this bed from frost. Cheers. The tomatoes are doing quite well. You can see the water walls, because I planted these about the middle of May. Because last year I planted them a little bit later, and I ended up with a bunch of green tomatoes that I had to put in the basement and then put newspaper on top of each layer and for them to finally ripen. So this year I'm thought I'd start earlier, and been pretty good crop so far. The tomatillos, year number 2, same thing, lots of flowers. No tomatillos. I don't know why, but other people have said they've had a great bumper crop of tomatillos, so I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Now, but this bed, as you can see, more onions, of course. Different kinds of lettuce that we've had a great crop this year. So a lot of fresh salads, and some of it's already it's started to bolt. So I've been trying to cut it back, but some of these baby leaves are still pretty good. Whereas the darker green ones are pretty bitter. So okay, originally all my herbs were out in the back 40. So when you went to go cook, it's like, oh geez, I got to go all the way out there, and it was where the mint was. This all was here, and I took a class at Broken Ground, and I think it's Karen Irby, I think that's her name. She was talking about you should always have your herbs close to the kitchen. So we have basil, dill, chives, parsley, Italian parsley, lavender, about 4 different types of basil, purple basil. And then this weekend we're having a big get-together with our Italian class. We're taking Italian lessons. Oh. And this is the kind of rosemary where you can use the stalks and for skewers.
Oh my! Oh, okay.
So I can tell you what the name is. It's called rosemary barbecue, culinary herb. Don't ask me where I got it. I don't remember. But yeah, you just take these and you soak them for about an hour, and then you can skewer different stuff on there, and we'll just then grill it. So that's the reason why I planted that. So that'll be kind of fun. Wonderful crop of garlic. I planted these last, I'd say probably October, and they started popping up early April. I could see them coming up through the straw that I had laid down, the mulch. But unfortunately, you know, about a week and a half ago, they all started, you know, drying out and falling over. So I laid them out on the beds for about a week. We didn't have any rain. And now they've been in here curing for, you know, two weeks now. So what I'm slowly going to do is, and I actually started this morning, braiding them. I got these from Dixon Dale primarily for my onions. So you pop, in this case, you put your garlic in, then you just tie off a knot, and the next one, and during the course of the winter, you just nip, open an area, pull out your bulb, and you have bulbs. But like I said, I primarily got it for the onions, because I'm going to have so many onions. That's the season this year. It's been a fun season, and definitely will be lots of garlic and onions in this household.
Well, thanks for sharing your garden with us, Geoff.
Well, my pleasure, my pleasure.